Have you ever went to a meeting, like those meetings that are long, long hours, and people are always saying something, but they're never talking about what really matters? And after you see hours passed by and no one spoke about what was really needed to speak about, we're going to talk a little bit about that today. Grace and peace for you that are listening to me. Thanks a lot for connecting and tuning in. Today, our theme is distractions. Our main Bible verse is in Acts chapter 15, verse 1. Certain people came down from Judea to Antioch and were teaching the believers, unless you are circumcised according to the custom taught by Moses, you cannot be saved. So what we have here, this scenario, is a little bit after Jesus was crucified and he ascends to heaven. We have many Jewish people who believe in Jesus, and they convert to Christianism. They accept Jesus as their Savior, and they acknowledge that they are going to be saved by him. So when new Christians start to appear from other places, and these new Christians, they are not Jewish, they're Gentiles, they're starting to learn and to hear from the older people from the church what they should do to achieve salvation. And what is taught to them is that they should do all the practices of circumcision. What was circumcision? What is circumcision? Circumcision is mainly a group of rules that a person follows to determine that they are part of a special group. Now, this circumcision, the first and probably the most important part of circumcision is the fact that on the 8th day of all males, or on the 8th day that they are born, they cut off the excess of skin that is around the penis area. This is for males. And also they observe another sequence of rules, a group of rules, which are also conserving Saturdays, which is also the way that they dress, the way that they eat, how they should behave themselves in everyday life. That is what circumcision is all about. So when this happens, Paul and Apollo, which were the main leaders of that group, they have a small discussion where they have different ideas, and because of that they take this to Jerusalem. When they go to Jerusalem, they actually speak with the main apostles. Peter, he is the first one to explain that circumcision is not necessary due to the fact that God spoke to Peter, explaining to him that there was no separation between Gentile and Jewish, between pure and impure, because there was this separation before there was only Jews and not Jews. That we even have this in the Holy Temple. You only have that the congregation were only of those who were Jewish. So you would have to become Jewish so that you could be saved. So in this situation, now in Christianity, what we have is the Judaism, it changes from an alliance that is physical to spiritual. You see, it is a Jew. A Christian is a Jew, but he is not Jew in the sense that all Jews understand of what Jew is understood by the world. It's Jew by the situation that is separate, that has an alliance, that has a connection with God. So, but what Peter explained was that this circumcision, it was inside. It was not that we were going to change the law, but Jesus came to explain us that the law was inside of our hearts. It was not something external. So even the other apostles, they talk about the restoration of the walls in Jerusalem. And this is all in a figure sense for us to understand that this restoration that happens through Jesus that saves us, it's inside out and not outside in, as was thought before. It is even more interesting that in the end of this chapter, the there are left four main things that we as Christians we should observe, which is the absence of food which is consecrated to other gods, food that contain blood, food that meat that came from animals that died in a cruel manner, and also sexual immorality. Now, all of these points, as we could imagine, the explanation that the apostles have are not so obvious like one could imagine. Because to begin with, the meat that was sacrificed to idols, it was to be avoided, not because the meat was sacrificed to a determined idol, but because of the manner that it was made. These historians, many, they explain to us that these meats, that these flesh, these meats, these steaks that were that were consecrated to idols, when they happened, they would make them in determined moments for determined events. So most of the times, these were not sanitarily wise speaking. They were like meats that were not conserved in a proper manner, so it would be full of bacteria, so not to eat that meat. Second type of meat not to eat would be meat with blood. We well know that today, if you go to a barbecue, and principally here in Brazil, you'll see meat that are dripping with blood. That red blood is not blood. But whatever that is, we're supposed to avoid eating meats that contain a lot of blood, because it wasn't well cooked. And again, bacteria. Third type of meat that you should avoid are meats that are of animals that died in a cruel manner. Now, we read about this even today in biology, nutrition, will explain us that we should not eat these types of meat because they have bacteria again. And the fourth was sexual immorality. Now, sexual immorality we speak is sex outside of the marriage, outside of your marriage, which should be one and only, and which should be officialized in a document, paper, right? Civilly speaking and religiously speaking. But if by any means, economical situation, you can't achieve a document or a religious event, if you live between two people and you expose this in a truthful way to your religious leader, then we understand that there's not a sin happening there. But when we talk about sexual immorality, we are talking about sex with many different partners, or even sex without legitimacy, which would be sex outside of marriage, and also sex between sexes. That in no situation, I believe, until today, I speak as of today, I do not understand that there is any type of possibility for that to happen. So what we see here in this Bible study is something that's very simple and direct, and helps us even today to understand that certain things we can do, but we should avoid, and certain things that we should do, we should avoid doing them in determined ways. But all things are free for us to do. We can do all things. Just that we should not allow these things to become stronger than our love that we have to God through his son, Jesus Christ. I hope this video has been a blessing for your life. Grace and peace.